We are back with round number 2 on the first battle between Gloomhaven and Mice and Mystics. Now, this has been kind of an upset because Mice and Mystics took out Mechs vs. Minions in the last round. Gloomhaven took out Risk Legacy, which we do kind of understand. But yeah, let's talk about this. I'm assuming you're going to take on Gloomhaven.
Yeah, I am.
Okay. All right. Do you want to kick us off in this?
Oh, sorry. Can you say that again?
Do you
You
want to
broke
kick
up a
us
little.
off on this part? Oh, real
Sh-
quick. Led Zepp, Courtney. Mice and Mystics was okay, but I was underwhelmed by the gameplay. The minis were fun to play, though. All right, let's keep that in mind.
yeah.
All right.
So my pick, of course, is Gloomhaven. Again, my favorite game at the moment. I don't know. It's gonna take a while to upsert it. It might be Frosthaven that upserts Gloomhaven off my number one spot. But to me, the another thing I haven't talked about is the lore of Gloomhaven, which makes it such a good campaign game because you know how we've been talking about generic fantasy. It kind of is a fantasy game, but it isn't generic. He's created his own races, his own type of creatures that kind of meet your paladins and your um, what is it, barbarians and stuff like that. But they're so different and so good. And the way this game works and opens up and expands, and one thing I haven't mentioned is all the hidden stuff that you have to unlock throughout the game by either completing personal missions, or some missions will allow you to open certain things. And to me, this game tells such an amazing story through just the 10 scenarios that I've played campaign wise, where it's like, hey, you do this, uh-oh.
Yeah, we'll read through that in just one moment. Go ahead and finish your point.
The things that, like, certain things, like, going through it, I'm playing with a friend of ours and my wife, and we were able to uh, open new characters and new creatures, or some of the same creatures, just different abilities. And there's this one thing that happens, and our friend Jim will tell you that it's such a different character that you have never seen in a fantasy game, really, how this character actually works. And it's so incredible, but I can't really ruin any spoilers for you. So,
Right. Right. Yeah, and that's one thing that I do find interesting is I know like the personal missions are pretty intriguing with that fact. I do like that part of that you have your own little hidden agenda, and it's not necessarily supposed to be kept secret. Like I mean, it is right, but it's not going to hinder the other players by you keeping it secret. Like it's not a traitor or anything. Let's talk about Ithri real quick. He had something written up that was pretty awesome as far as Gloomhaven goes. Not a fan of Gloomhaven. Takes way too long to set up maps. I do agree with that. It's forever and a half,
I,
which is
I, I do have a trick for that, which I'll explain here in a minute.
cool, and which is double bad because you can lose and redo maps. Takes way too long to get new things. XP gain is slow. Just getting one card is gross. Events are underwhelming. Losing maps feels the worst since the whole game is about progression. Just let me fail forward. The game is literally just slightly more interesting tabletop RPG combat. I don't understand why people like this game. I'd rather just play a tabletop RPG. If you put a gun to my head, I'd take the theme of Mice and Mystics over the better gameplay of Gloomhaven. Wow, that's a really insightful
Wow.
thought. I love that. Thank you, Ithri, for bringing that up, and we'll definitely debate those points here in a minute. Led Zepp
Yeah.
also said the minis were fun to paint, and Stupod Ketboard. I love that. Yeah, the minis were fun to paint in that. And now, so as far as components go, let's talk about that briefly. They both have minis. They both have a lot of modular boards. They both have a lot of use. Um, and and the storyline. I mean, I do agree with Ithri on that. I think the storyline in Mice and Mystics is is more original than Gloomhaven, and that's including the whole lore behind the city of Gloomhaven and the fact that you have like these weird amalgamations of
Yeah,
races and classes that you've never seen before. That's
but
cool,
here's
but
my
you're
thing about
mice.
the yeah. But here's my thing too. Campaign whiles, you're making choices to change the fact. With Mice and Mystics, the story's written out, so you got to beat the one scenario to allow you to read the next scenario.
Right.
Whereas with Gloomhaven, there are parts of the scenarios I'll never see as a campaign. I can go back and play them later, but their choices you make are opening new scenarios. And as for his point about setup, yes, it does take a bit to set up. There are two things that can help you, and one is there's an app that basically runs the villains. You just put what scenario you're playing in, it has all the villains set up for you. So the app is an algorithm, basically does the card flipping for the villains, how their powers and stuff like that. It makes things so much easier. You don't have to do it. It's on a screen. I put it on my computer while we play it. It makes the thing so much easier and allows you to keep track of everything without having to put all the little tokens and pieces.
Sure.
Two, when it comes to the game itself, like the setup of the game, the maps, the double sided boards, what we do is we find out which one we're going to do next. We discuss it if there's multiple branches that we can go do. Before we end the game night, we decide what we're going to do. And what I do is when I do cleanup, I put everything I need on top. So I put everything I don't need in the bottom part of the thing. I put the game board on top of it, and I put all the boards that I need for setup of the next game and all the points or pieces I need for the next game on top of it. And then this way, when I'm ready to play it again, I take the lid off. Everything's there. Take it out, set it up, done.
Okay. Yeah, that definitely makes it easier. It's still not as easy as Mice and Mystics, you're right, but let's because there are just so many things. That's one of the biggest detriments to Gloomhaven is the fact that there's so much stuff in it that it also hurts
Is
it.
that it,
Yeah.
yeah, it's still going to take time to set it up no matter what.
Yep.
It's because, and let's call it what it is. This is one of the first big Kickstarter games, and it basically started a Kickstarter trend where everything is thrown in there, including the kitchen sink.
Well, yeah, it's something that only mini games or minis games were doing before that.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, I don't disagree with that.
And another big thing about Gloomhaven, it's not dice heavy. There is still a little bit of luck because of the card pooling, but
Right.
it's not dice heavy. You
Yeah.
can mitigate it with how you play your cards.
So if we're talking pure mechanisms, I mean Gloomhaven does have it.
Yeah.
If we're talking theme, I think Mice and Mystics has it personally, just because I mean it's close, right? But I mean, but if we're talking campaign ability and your
No.
ability to
If we're talking
change,
campaign ability, I would give it to Gloomhaven because, again, one of the big things we're talking about is the driving force. And I was saying with Mice and Mystics, the campaign is written out. You either beat the scenario or you don't. This way
right?
you can read the next scenario. And the same kind of way for Gloomhaven, but you have choices to make that you can go do this or you can go do this. If you do this, this other one will shut off and you can't go do it now as you go through the campaign.
Yeah. Do you feel like it's that Mice and Mystics is more linear than Gloomhaven?
I do feel Mice and Mystics is more linear
Yeah,
than
because you just
Gloomhaven.
go chapter by chapter,
Yeah.
and that really does take away from on top of like the rough mechanisms, that takes away from the gameplay. I feel between for Mice and Mystics is that you have
My,
bad
my, my,
mechanisms and it's super linear, so it's
my
literally a
big
pass or success.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I
My big thing is Gloomhaven, you're telling the story, where Mice and Mystics, the story is told to you.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I do agree with the three though. I do think the theme in Mice and Mystics is its big argument right there. It really does
Yeah,
add a better
it's
theme.
different. Yeah, it's completely different.
Yeah.
It turns the generic fantasy on its head because you're not facing like giant centipedes. You're actually facing just a regular old centipede because you're this big.
Right. Yeah, you know what? I think it's going to have to go to Gloomhaven, personally. Just because of, as far as being able to tell a story afterwards or tell a story during the game and creating that, uh, Gloomhaven takes it.
Yeah, I agree. And
Yeah,
it's again, yeah, I'm a little biased because it's my favorite game, but like I said, the main point is you're driving the campaign, whereas the campaign is driving you.
right. In a way, right? Unless
In a
you
way.
lose, then it's like, oh, that really is. You
Yeah,
spent all that time to set up a game that
but
you lost miserably.
but the thing is also with it is that you can after you redo it. some of these scenarios have branching things, so you have to make a choice which way you're going to go because the other one's going to shut off, and that's what I think is what I'm talking about driving it.
Yep.
You have choices to make.
Yep. Exactly. All right. So now we're going to go into the next round here in a couple moments. That is between Charterstone and Pandemic Legacy Season 1. So stick around for that.
But I think I know which one's going to win.
Right. All right. And we are back. We are on round two, debate number two. We'll see in a bit at three. We have this between Charterstone, which beat out Lord of the Rings Journey to Middle Earth, and Pandemic Legacy, which beat out Harry Potter Hogwarts Battle. Unfortunately, that wasn't too close. But
No,
that is the Pandemic Legacy is the second seed, and Charterstone is which? What
the
seed?
five, the
Five.
five.
Fifth seed. Okay, cool. So I mean, which side do you want to go on this? I would probably prefer Pandemic because I've played both
Um,
seasons.
I'll go Charterstone, but I mean I can't go too depth into it because I've only played the first scenario.
Okay. Then why don't you take Pandemic then,
Okay.
and I'll take Charterstone since I played the full game of that as well.
Yeah.
All right, cool. So Charterstone, man, is it a cool game? Euro goodness, Legacy. Um, I rarely get excited to play a Legacy game after we're done with it, other than Charterstone. I wanted to play it again and again afterwards. And unfortunately, we don't have the group back together anymore, so we probably won't play it. And I don't want to play it with people who might be upset with the spoilers, which is most of my gaming group. So that is a deterrent from it. Whereas Pandemic, we can't play it after we're done. I mean, you can play
No.
the last scenario technically, but it's not going to have the same impact. I don't think that's a bad thing, but it's something to note, and you can
I
do the
have seen it
restarts
makes a
back.
great art piece.
Yeah, that's true. I've seen that too, and it's beautiful when it's done that way. But Charterstone, let's talk about how no matter what happens, you succeed or you continue the storyline in Charterstone. The storyline does take place, and your results do affect the overall gameplay every chapter. Whereas, like in Pandemic Legacy, if you fail at one of the months, you technically have a do-over. You can try it again. And in Charterstone, since it's competitive, you're trying to create your own overarching story. Which kingdom is the best between the two players? Now, here's the thing: with Pandemic Legacy Season One, there was one of the games, and I want to say it was like September or October, that me and my friends played, and we each got one turn, and we lost. We lost after 4 turns. One round of a 4-player game, we lost.
Who shuffled the deck?
That's beside the point. I don't think it was me, but I might be wrong. Um, I'm not saying it wasn't me. I don't remember. Yeah, we lost after one, and that is not something that can happen in Charterstone. The You always play it to the fullest. You can't just lose, and that's one of the biggest detractors for co-op games. So, yeah, what do you think about that?
Your issue with that, yeah, it's a big detractor of co-op games. However, the thing we have to talk about Pandemic Legacy is you said it earlier when we had Risk Legacy. That's the granddaddy of legacy games. This is the one that really started Legacy was Risk. Pandemic was the one that put it on the map and made campaign and legacy games a viable thing.
True.
Again, the difference is, yeah, we can all lose after 4 turns because it's a co-op game. Co-op games are that's just how they are. I can lose in 4 turns on regular Pandemic as it is.
Yep.
If things go wrong, it can happen. It's the story of a co-op game, especially that kind of co-op game, a Matt Leacock co-op game. If you would say, case in point, first Matt Leacock game I ever played was Forbidden Island. We let you shuffle the deck, and we had the first 3 cards were Water Rises. So it's possible for people to lose the game quickly.
Sure.
It's the beast of the game, I guess
Yep.
you could say. But with Pandemic Legacy, it did things that nobody did before. It changed games, or changed things on the board. Things happened, added new stuff. I don't want to give spoilers, but it just added new stuff. Wow, what are they thinking? What's going on here?
Yeah.
And it was just an amazing story that was driven. And yeah, like you said, that you get a do over if you fell in a month, but if you fell twice, there's no do over. You lost that month. So,
Sure.
and what I liked about it is it made it difficult as you go. So as you're winning, things get taken out of the deck that can help you, making it much more harder for you to succeed. But if you start failing, things get added to the deck. As a group, you get to decide which gets added to the deck to make it easier, give you more helpful items. And I really like that aspect of it.
Okay.
Because, okay, this seems too easy. Well, nope, the game decided it's not going to be easy for you anymore.
Yeah, that's fair. No, I think Charterstone it did a better job of building its story. So it unlike Pandemic Legacy, so you did have like the narrative. Things did matter in the game, but in Charterstone, the narrative really did change at the end of every
Yeah,
end of every game.
I can give you that. I haven't got that far in Charterstone, so I can't make an assumption on that.
Yeah,
But
it's not as good
there
of a
is
story
that
though.
thing that happens about halfway through the game. You know what I'm talking about, where it changes the game, where you're like, oh, it. I remember Pandemic Legacy as one of the first games that ever made me go, "What just happened?"
Yeah. Yep, that big event that was a piv- and so each game does have like a big event that really does a good job, but I mean definitely Pandemic Legacy that was the most impactful and that was the most
And then there's
intense.
two of them because you have the one that's early on where you're like, what's going on? And then
Yeah.
like towards the middle to the halfway point of the game, you're like, what just happened?
Yeah.
What is going no what?
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
I want to say like in the last couple games for each of them, like you know what the outcome is effectively going to be. I think Charterstone did it a
and
little bit better, but really, yeah, if we're talking about the enriching storyline, um yeah, it's hard to justify. Quan Seven said, Galaxy Defenders is my favorite campaign game. I don't know if I've played Galaxy Defenders. What
nor have
company did
I.
that come from? Yeah, I'm not familiar with that one. We'll look into that for sure. Let me write
Yeah,
that down.
yeah.
Galaxy Defenders. Okay. I mean, I have a game called Planet Defenders, but I think that's a very different game. I'm guessing it is. But yeah, so between Pandemic Legacy and Charterstone, it really is a close call between them. Both the productions are really good. Both embrace the legacy part of it. Um, whereas
I
everything I did
mean,
in
I
Pandemic, I
think
felt like I
Pandemic
was
has the theme part of it where you're racing to save the planet, where the other one's just city building. You're building a new
sure.
kingdom.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like that's one of the biggest things that Pandemic has going for it over Charterstone is the fact that, yeah, everything that you do impacts the storyline. Whereas, like in Charterstone, I might just be trying to unlock crates just to get cool new stuff that add to the
Yeah,
story,
exactly.
but I don't know that until it opens. But then again,
Yeah.
Pandemic does the same thing. Like, I mean, we both had an incentive to just run towards opening packages just to see what they were. So,
Yeah.
um, I know what my vote probably is, even though I'm arguing against it. What are you thinking?
As much as I love Stonewire games, and as much as
They're from Ares Games, and they also made Sword and Sorcery. I've heard amazing things about Sword and Sorcery. Both use the same basic combat. That's worth looking into. Okay, Galaxy
yeah,
Defenders. We will
miniature
look at
combat.
miniature combat. Cool, awesome. So
I have to
it's
look into that. Yeah.
yeah. I wonder if Quan Seven. Have you ever played Gloomhaven? And that's what we're going to be debating here in a moment. But yeah, if you played that, how does it compare to that one? And if you haven't, how do you think it compares to that one? So,
So my vote is Pandemic Legacy.
yeah, my vote is Pandemic Legacy as well, which I think Pandemic Legacy is going on against Gloomhaven for the finals.
Yep. And now I
And
have my
okay,
cheat sheet for the score.
so for the finals, you'll see how we're going to get into it. But please join us here again. I'm going to stop the recording right now so we can upload it to YouTube, and then we'll be back in just a moment.